So thank you for the opportunity to present our first steps towards the integration of iRODS and Dataverse, working from the iRODS perspective. I'm Danai Kafetzaki, and this is a team effort from K11 and SURF, and there are 5 more people in this room that have worked in this project. So from K11, Mariana Montes, Ingrid Barthena Roy, and from SURF, Alice Stewart Lee, Maitili Kalam Karstam, and Ander Astudillo. So our premise as data managers is that we want to facilitate the users and minimize their effort in managing their data using best practices across the whole data life cycle. And in this life cycle, at some stage, the data will be active, and at another stage, the data may be published. But published data may also be reanalyzed. So this is where the iRODS Dataverse integration enters the picture. And this workflow, we are looking into a minimum viable workflow with 2 parts. So from iRODS to Dataverse and from Dataverse to iRODS, working from the iRODS perspective. So the goal is to implement on the server side, but we start small with this minimum viable workflow, currently implementing the client side, and for depositing a draft into a Dataverse installation, then also updating this draft, and later on updating a published version. So the process starts with an iRODS user who provides the target Dataverse installation, the API token through a user script in order to connect to the Dataverse API, and the path to the data objects that constitute a data set, and the Dataverse specific metadata. So as long as the minimal metadata are validated, the process continues, and the script that we have implemented will deposit the draft in the Dataverse installation that is selected, and the DOI will be returned and attached to the data objects that are sent for publication. As long as this draft is deposited, then the data upload takes place, and then that can be done file by file or in bulk. An important component of this workflow is that the Dataverse installations have to be pre-configured. And this is why, this is because they may be different, not only the URL, but also the metadata that are required in order to deposit a draft. And we have worked for 2 Dataverse installations so far, the Dance and the Radar, apart from the demo vanilla installation. So the reverse workflow starts again from an iRODS user who provides again the target Dataverse and the API token, the selected DOI for the dataset and the target iRODS path. And based on the selected dataset DOI, the DOIs of the children are returned, if any, and based on those, the files are downloaded and metadata is attached, and the metadata have to do with the metadata that are already in Dataverse, but also metadata concerning the data transfer. The difference here is that it's not necessary to have Dataverse installations already pre-configured. So based on the URL, that process can continue. And Alice can tell you more about such a process based on the tool that Claudio presented yesterday, if I'm not mistaken. So working on this workflow, we have seen that it is possible to facilitate our users at least up to some extent with pushing data to Dataverse and pulling data from Dataverse. But also we also found out it is challenging to deal with large data sets, and it is also challenging to make this process unassisted. This is because the Dataverse installations differ and the policies are different. And we are also not confident in the generalization of this approach because we have investigated only 3 examples so far. And the server-to-server communication is only possible if we can use the API token outside of the user script. So I think this community has a lot of feedback to offer, so we are happy to hear from you your experiences with similar workflows and the publishing capability and maybe other dataverses that you are interested in. Thank you.
All right. Question?
I have actually 2 questions. One, why you don't only consider to publish metadata, but you also want to publish the data? And second, I was confused, who is assigning the DOI?
So, well, yeah, Ingrid can also respond for sure. If I'm not mistaken, the Dataverse is issuing the DOI, and it is in the plan to also publish the metadata. In Mango, we are working into downloading metadata, so that can be published as a data file, right? If I'm
So the point here is we make a copy of the data because we want this data to end in the Dataverse publication repository, and from there then the DOI is issued by the Dataverse repository. So actually that's why we move the data, because actually this is a copy of the data at that moment that is published there, and the data stay in Mango. It stays active and be used for later on, but actually it's like a snapshot that gets published and then gets there for 10 years, because for instance in our Dataverse it's for 10 years. So that's why we need to move the copy, and actually we make a copy of the data.
All right. That's it. Thank you.